I'm Dana Searles, and welcome to This Week in Iowa Politics on We're Iowa Plus. Each week, I will be breaking down everything Iowans need to know, from your local races for the critical midterm elections to bills moving through the Statehouse and what Iowa's leaders are doing on Capitol Hill. I will conduct in-depth interviews with experts, candidates, and state leaders, bringing you all the information happening across Iowa and how it impacts you. We begin today talking about a bill Governor Reynolds signed into law shortly after it reached her desk. Now, the law prohibits local governments from creating ordinances or protections that are broader than Iowa's Civil Rights Code. Last year, Governor Reynolds signed a law removing gender identity as a protected civil right. Over the past year, several cities, like Ames, added protections for transgender people from discrimination. Here's why the governor signed the bill.
Our bill that we passed last year matches what they do at the federal level. And one of the reasons that we did that is it does have an impact on protecting girls' sports and making sure that we're protecting girls in safe spaces, in restrooms and in lockers. And so that was at jeopardy if we have a hodgepodge of mixed laws within our state. And we thought that it was important that they be consistent, and so did the legislature.
Meanwhile, Ames city leaders discussed repealing their policy. The Ames city attorney says it can be confusing for people to see gender identity listed in city code, while the city cannot actually enact consequences for discrimination.
It's clear in the state law that local governments can expand upon that list. It's been that way for years and years and years in the Iowa Civil Rights Act. So this is quite the change to say that we can no longer do that.
The Ames City Council will vote on whether to repeal or keep that ordinance at the March 24th meeting. Another bill seeing progress that is one step closer to reaching the governor's desk would allow parents to raise a child consistent with their biological sex. It's a bill advocates against it say would open the door towards legalizing conversion therapy. Now, the bill says the definition of child abuse in Iowa law does not apply to parents or guardians who seek mental health services for a child to help them, quote, live a life consistent with the child's sex, refer to the child by pronouns consistent with their sex, make mental health or medical decisions based on the child's sex, and decline to consent to gender-affirming care for a child. Now, those for the bill believe this protects parents and foster parents, while those against say this could remove conversion therapy from being considered child abuse. The bill was in a Senate subcommittee meeting on Thursday, so here's how the public weighed in.
This is about regulating professional conduct, not the free speech or parental rights. Allowing licensed therapists to practice conversion therapy would place Iowa law in conflict with the ethical standards of mental health professions.
It is essential for the law to help parents protect children while they develop. Children are not always capable of understanding the long-term consequences of their actions. That's why we have laws that have to do with the ability of minors to sign contracts, purchase alcohol or tobacco, gamble, vote, just to name a few examples.
The bill has already passed out of the House, so if the Senate does pass the bill as is, it will head to the governor's desk. Also in the House, multiple education-related bills did pass out of debate. I want to talk about one of them. The first bill moving forward would have the Iowa Board of Regents review all undergraduate general education requirements relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or critical race theory, by 2028. Then it would direct those universities at its own discretion to eliminate that content. Now, the bill passed through the House in a vote of 62 to 27. That now moves on to the Senate. Also at the State House, nearly 23 years after the murder of a New Mexico woman, her story is still being used as a political talking point. And on Tuesday, state lawmakers moved forward with a bill called Katie's Law, an idea 30 other states have passed, and Iowa is now looking to join. Local 5's J.D. Snover has the story.
Iowa lawmakers are advancing conversations around a proposal that would allow DNA swabbing at the time of arrest for certain crimes rather than waiting until after they've been convicted.
It's an idea rooted in legislation known as Katie's Law, named after Katie Sepich, who was murdered in New Mexico in 2003. Since then, states and federal leaders have worked to expand DNA collection to help solve cases once thought unsolvable.
One of the biggest, I think, benefits would be to helpfully solve crimes quicker, maybe identify some serial predators that are out there. And that's how this legislation started originally.
Mary Ingham has spent 36 years working with victims through Crisis Intervention Service in northern Iowa. She says the criminal justice process can take months, often leaving victims and the accused in limbo.
It's not unusual for someone to be charged with domestic violence today, and the criminal justice system can take up to a year.
But not everyone agrees this is the correct approach. One local attorney compared the proposal to Big Brother in George Orwell's 1984, and Representative Charlie Thompson, who practices law himself, raises concerns rooted in privacy and federal overreach, referencing the Patriot Act.
This is the nose of the camel under the tent.
Thompson also points to Fourth Amendment protections in Maryland v. King, a close vote 2013 U.S. Supreme Court case, saying Justice Antonin Scalia warned then about how advancing technology could broaden the use of genetic data.
He could see coming down the road this exact use of DNA, which is not to identify who you have, but to create a library so that you can go hunt for other people.
In Des Moines, J.D. Snover, Local 5 News.
And let's talk property taxes, because they have been a top priority for Republicans the past two legislative sessions. Now, in this year's legislative session, so far, we've seen 3 proposals from Republicans. One in the House, one in the Senate, and then Governor Reynolds' plan. Now, the governor's and House Republicans' plan, they're kind of similar. They're proposing a 2% cap on revenue growth for cities and counties, while Senate Republicans have a soft 2% cap, and they have their plan tied to inflation. So I want to talk about a few key things in the governor's proposal. The governor wants to move property tax assessments from every 2 years to every 3 years. Then she wants to freeze property taxes for seniors 65 and up who live in homes valued at $350,000 or less. And she wants to create a $10 million fund for grants to local governments to help consolidate positions. Also at the Statehouse, Iowa has the second highest cancer rate in the country, and University of Iowa's College of Public Health is sharing new findings in their research into Iowa's high cancer rates. Now, last year, the Iowa legislature allocated $1 million to start this study. Now we're seeing some initial findings. In a presentation with the Environmental Protection Committee and the Health and Human Services Committee, the university shared that Iowa ranks high in a long list of cancers. The highest rates of cancer in the state are in prostate, breast, lung cancer, and melanoma. Doctors say part of the problem is actually behavioral factors, adding that Iowa has a high binge drinking rate, an average obesity rate, and an average smoking rate. Now, doctors fielded questions from lawmakers on what can be done to address this.
But raising the tobacco tax is the single most impactful public health intervention period across the board that has been shown to save lives, reduce cancer deaths. So I think that's a really important point.
Researchers said nitrate levels and water quality will be assessed in the next phase of the project. I do want to note this is a 2-year project. Researchers say right now they are about 1/4 of the way to completion. And the deadline for candidates to file for the midterm primaries is officially here. The final day for candidates to file was Friday, March 13th. Let's take a look at some of the seats up for elections. A U.S. Senate seat is open. It's to fill Senator Joni Ernst's seat. All of Iowa's U.S. representative seats are also open. The governor's and lieutenant governor's race is open, then also up for election. Secretary of State, State Auditor, State Treasurer, Secretary of Agriculture, Attorney General, state senators in odd-numbered districts, state representatives in all the districts, as well as, of course, a handful of county offices. So next week, we will have a breakdown of all the candidates on the primary election ballot in some of your key races across the state. Well, coming up, a bipartisan poll is showing some startling numbers that most of the state supports state efforts to making healthy food more accessible. We'll break down those numbers just ahead. A new poll this week is revealing widespread bipartisan support for state-level hunger relief. It was conducted by murmuration throughout the food bank through the Iowa Food Bank Association. Now, the poll surveyed 904 Iowans. Of those Iowans, 29% are Democrat, 40% are Republican, and 31% independents. Some startling statistics coming out of the poll. First, 80% support increasing state funding for food banks to purchase food raised or grown in Iowa. Then 71% agree the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, helps those experiencing food insecurity. Also, 77% support summer EBT. And finally, another 77% say they have had to change the amounts or the types of food that they purchase. And those are just a few of the findings that are coming out of this poll. So I spoke with the Iowa Food Bank Association, who helped conduct this, to learn more about what these numbers mean. The Iowa Food Bank Association released a new survey that found 71% of its respondents say food insecurity is a problem in Iowa. So joining me now to share more about some of the key findings is Dana Searles, the Executive Director of the Iowa Food Bank Association. Katie, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So we're talking about a very important topic, something that you guys just did this massive survey, a bipartisan survey. Tell me a little bit about the survey that you guys conducted.
Yeah, so we conducted a survey through a research firm, and they interviewed over 900 Iowans. And like you said, it was bipartisan. So Republicans, Democrats, independent voters, and it's all people that vote. So this survey was conducted, and we asked about grocery prices and spending habits. And we also asked a lot about food insecurity and programs that are happening in the state. And it was such interesting data.
Yeah, and I know the numbers were pretty eye-opening, pretty staggering numbers too. And before we dive deeper into the data, I want to just also start off by asking, what does the Iowa Food Bank Association do for the state?
Yes, what a great question. So the Iowa Food Bank Association it consists of the 6 Iowa food banks, and each of those food banks are a Feeding America food bank. So those 6 food banks, we have partner agencies in all 99 counties. We have 1,500 partner agencies. And just last year, we distributed over 54 million meals.
Wow.
So we work together to be the best food banks we can be and also best serve Iowa. So I am really excited to get to represent the food banks and the Iowa Food Bank Association.
And I'm sure this data really helps kind of drive your efforts, your guys' advocacy efforts. I wrote down a stat that said 77% of respondents said they have had to change the amounts or the types of food they purchase. I mean, that was kind of the first stat that stuck out to me. A lot of different statistics that stuck out to me. But I guess tell me, what are some things that really are startling to you guys when you see this?
Yes, so that was interesting data, and I don't know about you, but I've changed my grocery purchases, right? So the question was, have you had to make major changes or small changes? And a huge number of respondents saying they had to make changes. So we don't know exactly what those changes might be, but it might be buying generic foods, buying in bulk, right? Eating less expensive food. So yeah, I mean, I think we're all feeling that crunch that food is more expensive, and that applies to food banks too, right? As we're purchasing food, it's more and more expensive for us to buy foods.
Absolutely. And when you first got this report back and the results back, I mean, what stuck out to you? I mean, what were some of the statistics that you guys were like, all right, this is what we have, let's take it and run with it and figure something out here?
Yes, I think the one that jumped out to me is I think there's a correlation between those rising food prices and people's concern about food insecurity. So there is a concern in Iowa about food insecurity. So that number was high, and also people want the state to do something about it, right? That people said our state isn't doing enough to help people who are hungry. So some of the programs we asked about in the survey were Choose Iowa and Double Up Food Bucks and Protecting SNAP. So those were some of the programs that help alleviate hunger in our state.
And for you and the representation of the food banks, the people who see those programs day in and day out and the impacts it has on people. I mean, what does this survey now kind of say about those programs, I guess?
It says there's huge bipartisan support for these programs. So Choose Iowa, it is a program sponsored by Secretary of Ag Nag, and it is money for food banks to purchase foods from local farmers. So it's such a win-win because local farmers get income from the food banks, and then neighbors, when they go to partner agencies and pantries, they're getting fresh fruits and vegetables and cheese and meat from local farmers. It's a wonderful program.
And what is the biggest challenge food banks are experiencing right now?
Yes, the biggest challenge we are experiencing right now is what a lot of us are experiencing, which is the cost of food, combined with we have a lot of people that are coming to our food pantries, and we want people, if people need help, we are there to help them, but it is so expensive to get food. So right now, well, last year it cost us $21.7 million as a collective whole just for purchasing food. And that was a $9 million increase from the year before. So as food prices are rising, we're seeing it at the food banks, and also some of the federal support. It's harder to get on SNAP right now, which is why for us protecting SNAP is so important. For every meal that food banks provide, SNAP provides 9 meals. So it is important to us that people are on SNAP so they can buy the foods their family wants and needs. So that is another, we asked a lot about SNAP, and people think it's a great program. They think it helps the economy. So we're really working hard to protect SNAP.
So after looking at the survey respondents for more than 50%, I think mostly more than 70% of the respondents were supportive for programs like SNAP, Summer EBT, Choose Iowa, etc. Do you think those programs are enough, or is there more action that needs to be done further than those programs?
Yes, so Choose Iowa, like I talked about, and Double Up Food Bucks, we're asking for $1 million from the state to support that. And Double Up Food Bucks is where if you're a SNAP recipient and you use your SNAP EBT card, for every dollar you spend on fresh fruits and vegetables, another dollar is added to your SNAP card to spend on fresh fruits and vegetables. Again, and it's a win-win for grocery stores and local farmers and neighbors that are using their SNAP benefits. So Double Up Food Bucks, that $1 million investment would be great support. And then protecting SNAP, so eliminating barriers that make it harder for people to enroll in SNAP or even be eligible for SNAP. That's really important to us. At the Iowa Food Bank Association, we run the SNAP hotline for the state, so people can call and we can help them apply for SNAP online. So we're proud to be able to support that. But we just know SNAP is like the critical program for helping people who are hungry.
Really good to know. Why did you guys think now is the time for this survey? Or is this a yearly survey you guys do?
So we just started doing this survey a couple of years ago, but we're entering funnel week soon.
Yes.
So, and some of those programs are up for debate, right? So Choose Iowa is in the governor's budget, which we were excited to see, but we're asking for increased funding of that. In Double Up Food Bucks, we're asking for that funding and just eliminating those barriers to SNAP. So it was timely for what's going on in our state.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. What am I not asking about the report that you wanted to highlight as well?
I just think the thing that we walked away with was that there is bipartisan support in Iowa. Iowa wants to help their neighbors, right? Like that is what our state is built on. And I think this report shows no matter how you vote, we care about people that are hungry.
Absolutely. Katie, anything else you want to add before we wrap up the interview?
Yeah, so the Iowa Food Bank Association, again, consists of 6 Iowa food banks, and you can always donate time or money or food products to either the food bank or a local food pantry. And you can find out all that information at iowafba.org.
Awesome. Katie, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, the war in Iran stretches into another week. We'll break down the latest developments in the Middle East. Well, this week, the Defense Department officially confirmed the death of an Army Reserve soldier killed in an Iranian attack in Kuwait. A medical examiner has now identified Chief Warrant Officer 3, Robert Marzin of California. Now, Marzin was assigned to the Des Moines-based 103rd Sustainment Command. Governor Kim Reynolds spoke about him this week, saying she met his wife and children during his dignified transfer. Marzin and his family lived in Iowa for years, and Reynolds says his wife told her they still consider themselves Iowans. And Governor Kim Reynolds also spoke about the other 5 soldiers killed in the attack. They include Sergeant Declan Cody of West Des Moines, Major Jeffrey O'Brien of Waukee, Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore of Minnesota, Sergeant First Class Noah Teachins of Nebraska, and Captain Cody Cork of Florida. All 5 again were assigned to the Des Moines-based 103rd Sustainment Command.
I think, we should always celebrate our service members. We absolutely owe them a debt of gratitude for their willingness to step up and to wear the uniform and defend the freedoms that we get to enjoy every single day.
Let's turn now to the latest of what's happening in the Middle East and Iran. The strikes continue, and right now there's reports saying Iran has deployed a dozen mines in the Strait of Hormuz and is threatening to deploy underwater missiles. Now, the Strait of Hormuz, it's just 20 to 24 miles wide at its narrowest point. It's a critical checkpoint for global oil shipments. Military experts say even a few mines could funnel ships into danger, creating potential for serious disruption across the region and impacting the global oil supply. Now, the new Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, released his first public statement since the war began, saying Iran, quote, will not refrain from avenging the blood of your martyrs, end quote. However, the new leader has not been publicly seen or heard from since taking over.
We've knocked out all of their boats. They have some missiles, but not very many. I think we're in very good shape. The main thing is we have to win this.
Now, Iranian leaders emphasized Iran's grip on that Strait of Hormuz, promising to continue attacks on any ships attempting to pass. And we know that Strait of Hormuz is critical for oil reserves, and that means gas prices are spiking since that war began. So if you are looking for the cheapest place to fill up in the metro, you can just text the word gas to the number you see on your screen right now. That is 515-457-1026. You'll get sent a link to our website, and that'll show you the lowest prices at the pump throughout the area. Okay, let's look ahead to what we're keeping an eye on next week. We're going to break down all the candidates who filed for the midterm primary elections. Also, the Iowa legislature will face its second funnel deadline. So we're going to share what bills stayed alive and what bills were on the chopping block. We'll have a lot to break down. So we'll have that and much more next week on This Week in Iowa Politics. Thank you all for watching for week 2 on We Are Iowa Plus. I'm Dana Searles. Have a great day.